Chair. Good morning to the Acting Minister, Acting National Commissioner, the Deputy Ministers and the SAPS management. Thank you so much for the presentation. I want to start off with something that's very topical and nothing was mentioned about it, SANDF deployment. A complete failure, a big disappointment to us as South Africans. Why haven't we heard anything about that deployment? Minister's priorities as well as the SONA priority. And I'm really, really disappointed that nothing was said about it in your presentation. Nothing was said about the fact that we haven't had a single report since the deployment in terms of successes, in terms of informing South Africans where we are, what has happened, is it working, is it not working. If anything, since the deployment of the SANDF, there's been more deaths on the Cape Flats. If anything, it almost feels like a drive-by, like a wedding drive-by, where a couple is driving through the community and everyone is waving and smiling. There's absolutely no operations taking place. And I speak from a point of being present at these operations, Minister. I was driving behind 3 of these operations in different areas on the Western Cape for over an hour. And guess what? Not a single time did SAPS or SANDF stop to actually go in anywhere. They drove through the community, they smiled and they waved and they went to park and that was the end. What is happening? We have allocated billions. We literally see only one SANDF, and sorry if I'm going to be stuck here for a while, one SANDF van with 8 members and 4 SAPS vehicles in hard-hit communities. And at this point, we're having more than 100. We speak about the vulnerable women and children. That is where your victims are coming from, the Western Cape. I want to ask, why don't we have, your presentation speaks to a whole of government approach. Why don't we have a whole of government approach when it comes to this intervention? What stops us? What are the challenges? Because it has clearly fallen flat on its back. Why haven't we included forensics in this operation? It's not there. There's no intelligence. We speak to the members that's part of these operations. There's absolutely no intelligence. They don't know where to go and where to start. And that's the reality. So please, can we have feedback on the SANDF deployment, why it's not working, and what next? I think that's the first thing. Also, the second thing, I'm not sure if we are creating duplicate roles or if this is a smoke screen or what, but can we please unpack the role of the newly appointed, I'm not even sure what role he's been appointed in, General Kwanazi. Can we first, before I ask questions on that, please unpack what that role entails? And then also, we speak to the vetting, obviously, what is unfolding in ad hoc and Madlanga Commission and what our response. Counterintelligence. There's absolutely nothing in this report about counterintelligence that exists within SAPS. When it comes to detecting the risk, when it comes to lifestyle audits, what are we saying about counterintelligence? Are they there? Are they dead? And are they active? And what is the budget allocation for counterintelligence? Or is it no longer needed within SAPS? Because if we had an active counterintelligence in SAPS, we wouldn't be sitting here today with an acting minister and an acting commissioner. Then also, something the reservists. Here we have thousands of South Africans that has given their time and that has served this country for years, that has gone through all the training. And we are duplicating roles. We are employing new people in those roles when we do have our reservists. What are we saying about that? Where are we with the reservists who still have those per cell numbers on the system, who cannot even get grants because of that? We speak about, I think on page 31, youth, children, and vulnerable people. 47 million. For youth, children, and vulnerable, and we speak about, prioritizing GBV, another SONA priority, 47 million allocated. And we speak about crime prevention. When there are hundreds of children on street corners begging, and our policemen are driving right past them, as if that's not a crime. What are we saying about children that's been abandoned on every street corner on the Western Cape, throughout South Africa? But we speak about a budget of 47 million. We speak about border security, 2.7 billion rand. Does this include scanners? We heard in the ad hoc committee about one scanner. What are we saying about detecting illicit goods coming through our borders? Do we have the relevant equipment to address it and to tighten border security? SAP's infrastructure. A couple of weeks ago, Chair, I visited the Hawks in Bellville, their office. Lord knows I wouldn't go to work. That building has been declared unfit many years ago. The morale of the members in that building is at an all-time low. Is that building part and parcel of the infrastructure upgrade? It cannot even be upgraded, must just be scrapped. These are the real issues on the ground. I'm going to leave it at that for now. Thank you, Chair.
And they certainly, as I've keep emphasizing my engagements with the chairperson, that they are extremely helpful also to the ministry in identifying the issues that need focused attention. I'll try and address some of the questions, and then I'll hand over to General Mpane. Let me just start with some of the issues that Honorable James has raised, because I think that for this process to work, the oversight process, it's important that the agenda and the focus of this meeting is kept in view. So we were asked to prepare on the budget and the APP. And so we've had questions, for instance, about whether these targets are realistic or not. Those are helpful. I'll address all the questions that have been raised. We were not asked to report on the SANDF deployment, but the honourable member is entitled to raise that issue, and there are questions, legitimate questions, about how that intervention is being monitored and whether it is successful or not. It is successful or not. I think that is a matter that the committee should be focusing on in its work ahead. The deployment has just started. We have, as the ministry, also working on how to monitor the implementation of the deployment of the soldiers who are not directly under the command of General Timpane. But I see that the SANDF has quite a lot of assistance from the honourable member, entering homes and so forth. Now, and it's certainly premature to make that kind of highly generalized observation about it not working. The deployment is for an annual period. And I would say, honourable members, that it's critical to understand that the deployment of the SANDF is not a panacea. We've never presented it as such. The critical question for the police is going to be how we use this period to improve the level of policing in relation to organized crime. And certainly the deployment of the SANDF was necessitated by the fact, by the recognition that we were not succeeding in dealing with the gangs, with illegal mining at the level that we need. And therefore, we should be having a conversation about what the government is doing to address this evolving challenge of organized crime. That is the critical question. The deployment of the SANDF is intended to create the space for us to develop and implement such an organized crime strategy. Now, as regards General Mkhwanazi, we have elevated him to a very senior role at a national level to deal with organized crime. So he will head up the Priorities Committee on Organized Crime in the Net Joints. The Net Joints is chaired by General Musikeli. That is the main operational structure through which operations are implemented. The politicians don't sit there. So the decision that has been made with respect to the appointment of General Mpane should be seen as part of an effort incrementally to strengthen police leadership at the top. So the way we are seeing it is that she will be leading a team. General Mkhwanazi is part of that team. General Musikeli is part of that team. And they have distinct roles, and their responsibility is going to have to work together as a team. Because this idea that you have one national commissioner that does everything is wrong. What we need at the top at SAPS is a collective leadership that combines the skills and attributes of a number of key office bearers, if you like any large organization. And may I say, there's no need to be angry about this. If you ask the question, we'll give you an answer. General Mkhwanazi's appointment has been in the media. It's not hidden. It's been publicized. And I hope that his appointment also at national level will be appreciated, because we're making decisions about how to implement an organized crime strategy. And a decision about leadership is critical. In the documents before you, there is also the focus on the DPCI, which you might want to think about as our FBI. General Nkosi is here. The DPCI, the commitment is to build out the capabilities of the DPCI also as one of the lead agencies fighting organized crime. Now, Honorable James raises the issue about children. This is a very important question. But the honorable members of this committee should know that this is why we need an all-government approach. You can't look at the SAPS budget and say, well, is enough money being allocated to support the development needs of children? The question should be, what is the role of SAPS in dealing with the enforcement issues impacting children, issues of criminality, and it's the same with GBV and H, on which I thought General Schnickeling, Member Schnickeling, yes, under my watch, it looks like there are going to be a few people who might get it. But you asked all the right questions about whether the targets and indicators reflect this commitment. It's the same with infrastructure, Honorable James. You know that actually the department is not an infrastructure department. We don't build police stations. We don't maintain them. So when you go around the country and you see places where there should be police stations and there aren't any, as I have, and you go to police stations that are not properly being maintained, the question is whether the current model of delivery of police stations and maintenance of those police stations is adequate. I don't think it is. And that's a challenge for the government. The stations are built by the Department of Infrastructure and Public Works. And we pay them to maintain those stations. Now, you must not misread me, members, to be thinking that I am now pointing fingers at another department. I won't do that. Because I know if I was the minister of that department, you would still have the same problem. It's a challenge that we haven't succeeded in dealing with over the last 30 years. So that is why we've started a conversation with the Treasury about our approach to infrastructure. And it arose out of a conversation I had with Deputy Minister Matale, which is, if the current model is not working optimally, not like it's not working at all. I visited many stations, new stations. I was in the Western Cape over the long weekend and visited what do we call it? Not a pilot, the ones where it's a temporary satellite. It was a fantastic structure. I mean, for a satellite, really secure, because that's one of the problems we have with using the satellite option, that the police officers there may not be safe. But this was a solid structure. So we have started a conversation with the Treasury around PPPs, whether we can use the PPP model. One of the priorities in my conversation with the new acting National Commissioner is to be the implementation of that model. And my understanding is that there already are 27 stations that have been identified by GTEC for the implementation of that model. But if that model can be implemented, which involves the private sector, it could possibly, I don't want to be making promises, it could possibly transform the infrastructure landscape of policing in this country. The current model is not working, and it's not working optimally. I think there's a planning problem. You go to many communities, you all know, colleagues, you go to a community, they've got a police station, but the community has doubled in size. The police station is no longer coping. There's a planning problem there. So let's not be also simplistic. Infrastructure is a huge and complicated challenge in this country around policing. But we are thinking about how to respond creatively and thoughtfully to that challenge. And that maybe the committee can invite us in a few months. I hope we'll be ready to report back on that initiative. Now, the members have all asked us the right questions about implementation. No one is just, I think we're all aligned here on the priorities, that these are the right priorities. And the priorities are embedded. I think that's what we should be looking for in this meeting. Are they embedded in the current budget? Are they reflected in the APPs? Are they reflected in the target? I haven't heard one member of the committee say, we don't agree with your priorities. And how did we do that? We engaged with the presidency for the purposes of the SONA. So president doesn't just make announcements. Then we adopted priorities, and I really have to express appreciation to the leadership of the South African Police Service for what they've done, because we identified those priorities. First of all, I had to make sure that me and the two deputy ministers are aligned. Then we took those priorities to the MINMEC so that we have an all-government approach. And those priorities were then discussed with the Board of Commissioners, and they have taken the SONA priorities, the ministers' priorities, and made sure that in their internal budgeting and planning, those priorities are reflected. I believe those are the right priorities, and no one has contested that here. The questions that I think Honorable Ghana particularly and Honorable Sheikh Snickling raised the right ones, and I just want to spend some time on them, because the conversation we should be having here is not just a bilateral conversation between the committee and SAPS. It's a conversation involving the committee, the SAPS leadership, and the ministry. That's why I said that your questions are of enormous assistance to us, because they're the right ones. On the question of detective rates, Honorable Ghana is right that if we can start to see significant reduction in the murder rate, that is universally, internationally accepted as a good indicator of police performance and of that you're succeeding in general with the fight against contact crime. The murder rate is an objective rate, as you indicated. Now, we know for a long time, and that's why your spirit also of the questions are so important. I think that it may well be the case that the great majority of cases are not properly investigated. We know that victims of crime don't receive regular reports in many cases from the police. We know that our forensic laboratories are not functioning at the level that they should be functioning. And I'm greatly worried about the backlogs. And my understanding is that those backlogs are increasing, not decreasing. So I would also hope that the committee can call the board soon. I'm going to be engaging the board and ask them those questions. Because you're quite right. If we don't improve the training of our detectives, and General Timpane, General Zulu are here. They must hear the questions you're asking, because they are the right questions. They're also my questions. I think we've got alignment in the budget and the APP. The question is, how are we going to achieve these targets? And without rethinking, stepping up the training of detectives, without making sure that we improve the performance of the forensic laboratories, we're not going to achieve these targets. And when General Timpane made her opening observation, she said the issue is going to be around efficiency and effectiveness of the functioning of SAPS. She gave exactly the right answer, because we have to work within the existing resource envelope. All of you know the country's economy is not growing at the level that it needs to. You know that tax revenues are therefore under pressure. And you're all committed, as far as I understand it, at least in the GNU, to the current approach to the management of the country's finances. So the question is, we have to work within the budget, the financial constraints that the country faces. Because within those resource envelopes, we have to meet all the country's needs for social development, for the protection of our children, etc., etc. The question is, how does this budget reflect the priorities that the committee thinks should be our priority? Now, the reason that we're now re-emphasizing the importance of civilian oversight, and they're here, is that I think we got into this position over the last 30 years because we de-emphasized the monitoring, evaluation, and oversight role of civilian oversight. It's not going to be possible to turn civilian oversight around over time. There are good people there. They have some good leadership, but they have resource constraints. The same with IPED. We're going to be discussing that later. IPED is certainly not at the level where IPED, in terms of the resources, where it can ensure there's accountability. The question is, are we pointing in the right direction Are we asking the right questions at least? So we have to emphasize training. We emphasize oversight to address the issues that Honorable Ghana and Honorable Smith asked. So it's about HR. General Mkua is also here. I want them to hear the questions you're asking because I'm going to be asking them the same question. So what we have is a start. They are going to have to answer the question how we implement and achieve the results that we're trying to achieve. So yes, we have I don't know even if that's too strong, if we have a blueprint. We've taken some important steps to align. We don't have a blueprint yet. And I'm sure that you're going to be, in your oversight role, even putting us all under pressure, especially those of us in the political process to say, what are you doing? What haven't you done? And I welcome the pressure, but I am saying we're at the beginning of this reset agenda. Reset. It's going to take years. I think we should start be thinking, not in a year, we should start thinking in the next 2 decades. Not like to postpone what we need to do, to take systematically, to take steps every year from now on to build the kind of police service that we're trying to build. And I agree very much with you. They all know it. I'm not speaking about the change in the policing model. I think visible policing has to be part of our ongoing strategy. I think our communities expect visibility. But you're quite right that visibility doesn't yield conviction. And we need an intelligence-driven approach. So we also need to manage a change in the policing model, which is what we're saying. And I think that that's exactly what we need to achieve in the next 5 to 10 years. That we have to change the model of policing, not by throwing the baby out of the bathwater, but by building upon what has been achieved, what is necessary. I mean, I think, for instance, we need street lighting. You know, the reason that I think we must strengthen community policing, patrollers and so forth, is that the visibility issue is important. The presence of law enforcement. I know you go to any big city and you see policemen on the street corners and so forth. It creates a sense of security, but it's definitely not enough. We need to implement a new policing model, not only to reduce the levels of organized crime, improve detection rates significantly. I don't think we've got 10 years to improve detection rates. That's what I'm saying. I think we have to show improvement year on year. If I don't address a question, it's because I'm not sure of the answer, and I'm sure that the team. But the issues, so GBVH, I just want to keep emphasizing. We are emphasizing the importance of this because we see the classification, the decision that's been made by the president as a call to action. Say what's happened in the last 30 years, what must now improve. And the law enforcement side, we are emphasizing. It's not a mistake that Deputy Minister Bushelu has been given this specific responsibility to ensure that the law enforcement picture changes by achieving the targets that we are setting. And she's already been hard at work. And I'm emphasizing that because to underscore the fact that this is a priority. And in the area of technology, another area that the committee is identifying, I think the department has to improve its ability to absorb new technology, to identify. We're now in the era of post-digitalization away in the AI. I mean, I don't think we have the internal capabilities yet, because this is a new, in a way, it's an evolving capability to see what law enforcement capabilities there are, as well as risks that come from the AI revolution. But we don't have to go that complicated. Body cams, drones, they've done well in the Western Cape. The Premier of Gauteng has bought more drones, I understand, for us than we've been able to buy. But that's where other parts of the system step in and help. So I think technology is an area. Again, the Deputy Minister has been to China, where they focus on this matter, whether there's a possible partnership with the Chinese. You all know that I think, the Chinese have gone for surveillance too. They have cameras everywhere. And before I got into this portfolio, I might have said from a human rights point of view, I'm uncomfortable. But our society is prepared, I believe, for more surveillance. If it means less privacy and more surveillance, and therefore more safety, that's the model they go for. And I visited that operational center in the Eastern Cape, run by Agri South Africa. I know that there are different such initiatives in different parts of the country, also by SAPS. And I want to say to the National Commissioner, I think we must tackle this thing once and for all. We need one big operational center which is properly equipped, properly staffed, so that we have real-time data on where crime is happening and who's involved in this criminal activity. And it's an area we've been talking about for the last 30 years. There have been some initiatives, but it's time for some bold action. The lifestyle audit, the Minister of State Security announced after the SONA, or was it in the SONA that the President announced that the lifestyle audit will be carried out by the Department of State Security. We had already started my conversation with the National Commissioner then, General Masemola, because he'd already started implementing many of the conversations that we are currently having. He was working quite hard. And so all of this, I would say it was not something that I am concerned about his well-being, even as he faces it, because he was carrying out his responsibilities faithfully. But in any event, we had started with the SRU to do the lifestyle audits. Now the SAA is doing it, but we have to make sure, General, that, how is it going to work? Will they be reporting to us? How do we make sure that they are also doing their work? Because we have an interest in ensuring that the lifestyle audits are carried out, but it's not in our hands. We are not doing the lifestyle audits. It's being done by the SSA. Financial controls, I leave that to General Zimpane. One of the reasons why she's sitting where she is that she understands financial management. And I believe that SAPS we got into the situation because we messed up supply chain and financial management. And that has an impact on police performance. So those who say, no, you just need a cop's cop to run a big, complex organization like SAPS, really, with respect, don't understand what it takes to run an effective organization that has to do something. And if it has, whether it's manufacturing products or it's doing safety, that organization has to be well run and well managed. And it has to manage its finances properly so that resources are not wasted, resources are properly allocated, and so forth. The extortion question is an important one, Honorable Director. It's a growing problem. At least it's reflected now in where the focus must be. Extortion is a very difficult crime to police, but I also think that your observations about the protection of victims of the small businesses is a very important one to hear. It's not just about arresting the extortionists and the contortionists. It's about protecting those businesses that need to establish themselves and to grow and to be able to do business without being intimidated and expected. So it is a focus. It will be a focus of the Nkwaнаzi, extortion. But I think this idea of protecting victims is very important. Now, I am rounding up the person. The right questions have been asked about conviction rate. But is that the target that SAPS, you're saying SAPS must adopt? Or is that illustrates the question about the importance of a whole government integrated approach to the criminal justice cluster? And I can tell you that we are struggling in that area because departments do work in silence. And I can't instruct the Department of Justice, nor can I instruct the head of the NDPP, who is independent, constitutionally independent, what targets he must adopt, what his priority should be. But of course, if you've just got an arrest target for the police, then that is what they're going to do. They're just going to arrest. So I think that the one way in which maybe the committee can also assist, maybe the committees in this cluster should think about a cluster approach also to oversight, so that the targets that are set for across the cluster can be the ones that are emphasized in the oversight process. Yeah, so I would like General Gimpani to deal with the matters that I haven't dealt with, Chair, if you don't mind.
Honourable James.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to go back to crime prevention. Now, we cannot have, what concerns me, General Mosekile, is we cannot have a budget of 47 million when it comes to protecting women and children and there's no enforcement. I think, like the Minister said, I understand earlier on when you referenced Section 10 of the Children's Act in terms of whose responsibility it is to act where children are in direct danger. We also know that there's a national instruction basically for SAPS that allows SAPS to actually respond to these cases, especially when it is after hours when you don't have social workers. Now, I'm also saying we cannot basically shift and I don't want to say blame shift. We cannot look at and every time we reference and we mention children, we say, no, this is the responsibility of the Department of Education or this is the responsibility of DSD, particularly where we know that we have social crime prevention and particularly where we know where children are in spaces of risk. We need to ensure, number one, the priority as per the Children's Act, that we take those children to a place of safety. Now, you asked earlier on, we cannot just remove. Removing is the last thing. It's so traumatic. I've been on scene with quite a few of these cases, and that's the absolute last thing that we want to do. But as things stand right now on the Western Cape with the high levels of drug abuse and gangsterism, children are abandoned and children are at risk. Children are sleeping outside, they're going without food, they're being abused, sexually violated. Every day I'm getting hundreds, dozens of cases of children being sexually abused, going without food, are going to these homes. So I'm saying to you, at any given point, we need to ensure that our police stations, our victim-friendly rooms are adequately equipped to absorb these children. And at any given point, whether I go to SAPS at 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock, because sometimes in these drug and gang infested areas, Minister, your social workers cannot just enter even without SAPS on their own because of the risk. So this is something which, and even when we do have removals, Minister, you don't even have vehicles. Your social crime prevention is mandated to respond to such cases to ensure that that child, that minor does not get into a van but into a vehicle. There are many times when we cannot remove because SAPS does not have the resources. That's the reality, and this is what I'm trying to say. So we cannot say that when a child is found loitering on a street corner, Western Cape, a social worker can just pick that child up. This is why we have social crime prevention. This is why we have the vehicles to actually stop, because when that child is standing on the street corner, that child is at risk of being raped, being murdered, being abducted. It is the responsibility, the primary responsibility of SAPS to ensure that child's safety, to load that child in the vehicle, take that child to the victim-friendly room, track the parents, bring the parents in, get the social worker, and the social worker will then deal with the case further. So that is a must that we have to do. If we are addressing gangsterism on the Cape Flats, we cannot wait for that child to get into a pelapos or into the gang before we go and rescue that child. It is our responsibility, social crime prevention, to act to ensure that that child is safe. And then basically we notify DSD, and we have all of those social workers on standby. I must say the social workers on the Western Cape are quite effective. They have been responding adequately. But the thing is, with our SAPS members, where all of these children are at risk and in these gangs right now, we find that SAPS members aren't even aware. And I appreciate MP's question on, don't you think it's time that some of our members gets back to school? They are not even familiar with the process in terms of what forms to have at the police station. So they don't know about the Form 22, the Form 36, how to do that. And it is needed in the Western Cape. So if we are saying we are allocating a budget of 47 million to address women and children and crime prevention, we must ensure that we have the capacity, that people are educated and empowered to actually ensure that we have value for money when it comes to the spend of 47 million. So we cannot approve a budget where there's loopholes. So this is what I'm saying when it comes to, we have to, and I'm not going to back down on this, we have to act where we see children are at risk. No more children loitering, no more children, when children are meant to be in school, that is a violation of the children's rights. And SAPS is meant to act and be first responded to that child that is vulnerable. Then the second question I just want to ask, the priority, and you're right, Minister, we agree with all those priorities. It is needed. We have two programs. We have Shanela and we have the SANDF deployment. Now, I don't understand when we say, with Shanela, we have weekly monitoring, which is awesome. Here we have a program that has been mentioned that stems from the SONA, from the president, the SANDF deployment. And 2 months in, we're saying we haven't monitored. Why? I would have liked to think that the same urgency is assigned here with this program. Shanela gets monitored weekly. SANDF 2 months and we haven't monitored.
1 minute.
We don't have an analysis when it comes to that. Thank you. So the comparison, what's the difference? Shanela, we just heard that all departments are present. They're participating. With SANDF, the minister says we cannot instruct other departments. So I'm not sure where's the difference here. Please help me understand. And then last, General Sentimula, you spoke about the e-docket pilot. Thank you so much for this. We have been asking for this for the longest time ever. But I just want to know that we've had this program rolled out before. There was a service, if my memory, I just didn't have enough time to do the research now. There was a service provider appointed not so long ago, and monies was paid actually for this e-docket program. What happened? There was no value for money. I believe that matter is in court. Have we recovered the money spent for that program? What is the status of that? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable James. Any